So then, Brigham, if you have, what we might even do is spend a couple minutes at the beginning um, answering some of your questions, because it doesn't look like
Okay.
we've got a whole lot of other people here, at least not yet.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you want to spend a few minutes just answering some Hebrew questions?
Yeah. Let me pull it up. I had it specifically. Number one, I had a question specific about because it looked like one of the. It didn't say the uvular fricative on it, on that actual Quizlet little thing, but it looked like it should be pronounced that way. So that's why I was gonna ask real quick.
Sure.
Okay, I think it was on two. Okay,
So I'll show
so
you the.
number one is calf. That's
Mhm.
I sound like I'm dumb whenever I say like
You do not.
calf. Is that right?
Right.
Calf? Or how do you say
There
a
you
little
go.
bit of that?
So that one's tricky because we've got two versions, right?
Okay.
We've got um, chaf, which is that uvular fricative sound, chaf, and then when it has a dot in it, it's kaf.
Okay. Okay.
Chaf has that uvular fricative sound. That's the one on the right, and then kaf has the k sound, like a K would in English, right? And that has a dot in it.
Okay. Okay. And the other one was the S. Samek? Or
Hmm.
is that how it is, or does it have that same?
Exactly. So there are two letters that make the s sound. So samech is one of them, and that's the one on the right. And then sin. Let's see if I got this right. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm trying to remember how to do this, and ah, I don't even remember how to do this in typing, but it's the one with the dot on the left. So
Okay.
it's samech and sin.
The main thing is you basically answered my question pronouncing it. That was my I didn't know if it had that back of the throat sound to it. It looked like it did, but it didn't say it did, so I wasn't sure.
It does.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
And I
Very.
think that was basically it on that one. And I just kind of wanted to think there might have been one on week three. Let me see.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't think. Okay, I don't think I had anything on. Okay, well here we go. The on some of the slides, it has the
Mhm.
Torah reading. Did y'all actually read that last time?
Torah reading. Oh, the Torah reading blessings. No,
Yes.
we didn't.
Yes.
We didn't read through them. We basically just identified letters.
Okay. 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 That was my question because I'm like, there's a lot right here that I don't
Oh
under.
wait, how did we get all the way there?
Right. That's why I was like, man, they just really moved forward on that one.
Right. We're gonna start reading words today.
Okay.
All right. Now, do both of you know how to use the annotate function on Zoom?
I do not.
I
I'm
don't either.
using my iPad, and what they were
Um,
talking about last week, well, last class, I'm like, I don't see any of what y'all talking about.
okay.
Well,
So,
I'm on a laptop, but I don't. This is the only time I've ever had to use Zoom, so I don't know anything about it.
okay. Do y'all have paper and pen around?
Yeah, I've
Yes.
got a notebook. Yeah.
Okay. So, what I would love for you to do is really big on your piece of paper so that I can see it on screen. And then, Curtis, I guess I'll ask you to turn your camera on. Um,
Okay.
but once you have it, but if you can, the two of you can write the five Sofit letters and their base letter. So Sofit are those final letters from last week. And I know you weren't here, Brigham. You watched a video, so
I'll try. Definitely. I'm gonna give it. I'll give it my try here, and we'll see what we can do here.
Okay. Sure.
I'm pretty sure I can write the actual soffit letters, but I don't know about the original.
yeah, just as well as you can.
Well, and I guess I should do it big also. Bigger. Trying to remember. I think I might have only got. I can only remember 3 right offhand.
Can you show
and
me
and I might have also wrote them incorrectly, and I apologize for that if I did. I'm trying to. I know it's supposed to go below the line. Get that.
All right. So the one in the middle, I can definitely identify the one in the middle. So what's the one in the middle?
I really apologize. I've been trying to go over it myself. I don't know what it's called. I just know what it looks like.
You're good. And so I saw two different Sofite letters that looked really familiar that were on the right and left of this one. So this one here that you drew better than I just drew on the screen. Curtis, do you know what this letter is that I just drew on the screen?
It looks Mem Sofite. Is
nice.
that what?
That's a Mem. Oops. That's a Mem Sofite.
Okay.
Right.
I'm actually drawing that now.
Yeah.
And again, I apologize for not knowing. I should. I've been trying to go over it, and I will be a lot more prepared next time.
No need for apology at all. We're just starting here. So that's a Mem Sofite, and then 2 others that I think I saw you draw. One is one that kind of looks like one of the ones you were doing is a Nun Sofite. A narrow, which is narrow. It looks like a Vav, but really long.
Okay, that's. I put a little bit too much on the top then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that one's a Nun Sofite. And then we've got also, and I should be doing this right to left. I apologize. I did this a little off. Oh, wonderful. Nice.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Can you see that?
Yes. And so if you can hold it up for a minute. So the Mem Sofite, on the right, we've got a Mem. On the left, we've got a Mem Sofite. Nice. And then you did it the triangle way, which is beautiful too. You've got the Chaf Sofite. So this is your Chaf. And that's the letter that you were asking about earlier, Brigham.
Okay.
And then Chaf Sofite. Chaf Sofite can also be drawn a little bit like a Daled, but really long. You're always going to find a vowel in the middle of a Chaf Sofite. So let me write that here. Chaf Sofite. Fe Sofite is going to be. This is a Fe. This is a Fe Sofite. And most of the Sofite, except for Mem Sofite, all the other ones are going to go below the line. And then we've got a Tzadi Sofite. So Tzadi Sofite, this is a normal Tzadi. And then this is a Tzadi Sofite. Yours is so pretty.
Which the Sofites are that's the end of the word, right?
Exactly. So Sof
Okay.
means end in Hebrew.
Okay.
Great job. Thank you, Curtis.
You're welcome.
You're all great. All right. And then so Brigham, this is something that you didn't have to study, but just gonna try something out. So remembering that Hebrew letters make the sound of the beginning sound of the letter's name. I said that weirdly, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what sound each of these letters makes? So what sound does a Chaf or a Chaf Sofite make?
It's the sound, right? Or the k.
Yeah,
Because I know you're saying the one's got the little dot on it, and that actually makes the K sound, but the leaving the dot off of there is the ch sound.
Exactly, right. And so what sound would a Mem Sofite make?
Just
Brigham?
just the M, hard M.
And then a Fe?
F.
Tzadi?
I try to get my mouth to work. That's
Like
sound like the TS.
Exactly. Like pizza. Exactly.
So there you go. So
And Nun Sofite.
just the N.
Awesome, wonderful. So that is, it might seem really easy, but that's such a basic thing that a lot of people don't understand about Hebrew, right? That when we're talking about letters, we're really talking about consonants. About that, it sounds really odd by itself, or but it's important that we get those sounds so that today, when we learn vowels, we can distinguish the difference between the two.
Okay.
Questions about these Sofit letters? Right.
I don't have any.
And one thing just to review from last week about these Sofit letters is that when you see a mem at the end of the word, or a chaf, or a nun, or a tzadi, or a fe, it's always going to be in the final form. It's always going to be in the Sofit form. And you're never going to see any other letters that show up in a Sofit form. So all the other letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet, are going to show up the same way in every word.
Okay.
Except there may be some dots around. We'll talk about the dots sometime later. All right. So let's try. I'm going to have y'all switch places. But Curtis, can you identify the Sofit letter that's at the end of, in fact, I'll number them. That's at the end of word number 1.
Would that be a Kaf Safit?
Right, except can you try saying chaf?
Chaf.
There we go, nice. The symbols that are in the middle of the letter are, it looks like the dot that would be in a kaf, but it's actually a vowel that we're going to learn today. So it's still a chaf Sofit. All right. How about Brigham? What about number 2?
Is it a chaf as well? Chaf.
It's also a chaf Sofit.
Okay.
Nice. All right. How about number 3, Curtis?
Is that box right there that you're hovering over?
The number 3.
Oh, number 3. I'm sorry. Mem Safit.
Nice. Okay. And then I skipped over another couple of the same word that we had in number 2. Brigham, how about number 4?
That's kaf as well, isn't it? Chaf.
It is chaf as well. There are a lot of Hebrew words that end with a chaf Sofit.
Okay.
Curtis, number 5.
Also, Mem Safit.
Great. And this is getting a little repetitive, but that's okay. Brigham, how about number 6?
That's a mem as well.
There we go. Curtis, number 7.
Nun Safit.
Great. And then Brigham, number 8.
That's a mem as well. Or nit.
And there you go. Nun
Sorry,
Sofit.
I got the tongue tied.
You're good, because there's a lot of repetition here. Big question is, what is the Sofit letter that you don't see on this page that we're missing? And either of you can answer this.
Fe? Isn't that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
Fe Sofit is the one that you're not seeing here. Great. Now, you know all of the letters that are in this blessing after reading the Torah or blessing before reading the Torah, but we're not going to read it today because we still need to learn vowels. You ready?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So we are going to start learning our Hebrew vowels. Vowels, remember, are they're going to be those symbols, they're going to be dots, or they're going to be lines underneath or above Hebrew letters. When you read some Hebrew prayers, there are going to be other dots and lines and dashes. Sometimes those are for the purposes of reading Torah. So we're not going to go over those in this class, but just know that to read, when we're not chanting something in a particular tune, to read Hebrew, we're going to learn all of the symbols that you need to know. So if you come across in a Hebrew class a symbol that we haven't learned, don't worry, you can still read the word. You just ignore those extra symbols.
Okay.
But our first vowel that we are going to learn is going to be patach. The reason why I have an aleph there is what sound does an aleph make?
Silent.
It's silent. Great. So when you have an aleph or an ayin with a vowel underneath or a vowel above, it just takes on that sound of the vowel. I just put the aleph there. Sometimes people will put an X there just to let you know what it looks like, whether it's under or over, in or under or over a letter. So here, our first vowel is patach, and it's the ah sound, like father or law or walk, something like that. Just for some practice, Curtis, do you have another Hebrew word that has that patach sound in it? Or another English word, I mean?
Oh, I was about to say Baruch.
Baruch does not, oh, it does. You're right, Baruch does. It's actually a different vowel, but yes. So Baruch, right? Okay, do you have a Hebrew word, or sorry, an English word, Curtis, that has that ah sound in it?
I'm drawing blanks.
Sorry, I meant Brigham.
Oh, well, I'm sitting here trying to.
You're good.
I'm fluent in English, and this is pitiful.
I feel like you're on the spot, right?
That's right.
You just said something in a Southern accent that I would not, a word in a Southern accent that does have that ah sound that I wouldn't say with an ah sound.
Oh.
Huh? Like I'm, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's, yeah.
Right?
Good old Louisiana.
I love it. I wish I had that. All right, same exact sound is the kamatz, right? So the patach and the kamatz have that same exact sound. The kamatz is drawn like a T, like a little mini T, right? So line across, line down. It's the kamatz. Same ah sound as in father or law, walk. That's the kamatz. The vast majority of the time, I have this written very small at the bottom of the screen, the vast majority of the time this kamatz has the ah sound. So every time you see a kamatz, I want you to say the ah sound. But in just a few minutes, we're going to learn some variation on kamatz. But 99% of the time, we're going to see the kamatz with, when you see a kamatz, it's the same sound as patach.
What's the difference? Like like what's the actual difference in Hebrew? Why does it have the same sound, but you use it?
Great.
Obviously, it's a separate letter or separate vowel.
Right. They both, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Trying to think. I think I'm looking for a Hebrew word. Let me go back a couple slides and see. Here we go. So the word Baruch, for example, right? It's written with the kamatz because of the letters that are before and after it, right? Is it an open syllable? Is it a closed syllable? That sort of thing.
Okay.
Right? Does it have a soft consonant or a hard consonant after it?
Okay.
So those are the sorts of things, and I do have a whole worksheet on that, but number one, I haven't memorized it, and number two, that's kind of beyond the scope of this, but I'm happy to show it to you.
Yeah, I just curious to see why it has the same sound, but it's obviously different, you know. Right. But thank you.
So patach and kamatz. So now you know patach is that one line underneath. Kamatz is that little T there, right? And they both make the ah sound. So for example, let's do a little bit of practice here. Okay. So Curtis, what letter is, I'll do a different letter because I just gave it away. What letter is this, Curtis?
A lamed.
Lamed, nice.
Yeah, lamed.
Great. So when you put together the ol sound and the ah sound, what do you think that syllable is, Curtis?
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
So when you put together the ul sound that the lamed starts with and the ah sound of patach, how do you think those go together?
La.
Perfect. La, right?
Okay.
And so if that's the case, if la, this sounds like la, what do you think, Brigham, that this sounds like?
Same thing. La.
Exactly. Wonderful.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So our next vowel here is a chirik. And I'll say too that the names of the vowels, for some people it's really, really, really useful to know all of the names of the vowels. For some people, they just learn the sounds of the vowels. So whichever is more helpful for you. Today I'll teach all the names of the vowels because for some it just helps to have that name to the symbol. But in the future, I'll just ask the sound. After today, I'll just ask the sound that the vowel makes. So the chirik is just one dot underneath the letter. And it's really important that it's underneath the letter, right? And important to know, too, that when you see a chirik and then you see a yud after it, it still makes the same sound. It makes the E sound, right? Because what sound does a yud make?
Just a E.
Y, right? And
Okay.
so if you put the E sound and add a Y at the end, it doesn't sound any different, right? E,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't change anything if it has a yud at the end. It is a long E as in me or free, right? So either Brigham or Curtis, do you have another example of an English word that has that E sound in it?
Tree.
Tree, and then I think you said, did you say C?
Yes.
Great. Tree, C, exactly.
Makes me feel a little bit better now that I had that.
I'm glad you feel better. All right. So Seire has two dots underneath. Seire makes that long A sound. So like bay or rake or hay. Similar to the chirik, when you put a yud at the end, it doesn't change the sound, right? It's a, but doesn't make the sound any different. So both of these uh, are, both of these make that A sound. If you want to be really technical, you add the yud at the end and it's called a seire malay, a full seire. But for our purposes, all we need to know is that it's an A sound, right? So what are some other Hebrew words, or some other English words, I should say, that have that A sound in them?
Tray.
Ray,
Day.
day, nice, great, we've got it. Okay, more dots, hooray. Hooray, also, say Ray. But this one's segol, and it makes an eh sound. This one's got two centered dots and one dot centered underneath that, so three dots. And this one has the eh sound, like bell or leg or egg. Any other sound English words you can think of with that eh sound?
Keg.
Egg. Yeah.
Big.
Big. Right. The G makes a big difference at the end. Nice. Right. So that's segol. And just so you can see them next to each other, chirik has the one dot, seire has the two dots, and segol has the three dots. So it's E, A, E. Someone tried to teach it to me once as the more marshmallows you have in your mouth, the harder it is to say the syllable, right? And my husband is clapping because I guess he taught me that. It's not very helpful to me, but if it's helpful to you, then please use it. So remember, with the one dot, E, two dots, A, and the three dots are E. So questions about all these little dots underneath the letters?
Nope.
Great. All right. There's more. Okay. Now we're going with dots that are not only above the letter, but we're adding a twist. So this next one is called a cholam, and it shows up in two different ways. So one of those ways, I'll actually start with the left, which I should never do, but I'll start with the left here. One of these ways is that the dot just shows up over the letter. The way I learned a cholam is that the dot is always over, so it makes an O sound. Or let's say that you've got a basketball that's being thrown over your head, or you're throwing a basketball and you really want it to get in the hoop and you say, oh, oh, right? I don't throw basketballs, so maybe that's helpful to you. But it's over, right? I'm 4'10", that wouldn't work very well. So that's one version, is just that dot to the left and over. The other version is going to be, it actually looks like a vav. Ooh, I don't know what just happened. It looks like a vav, and it's got the dot over it. So you'd have the letter on the right, the letter first, and then the vav looking thing. It is a vav, the vav with the dot over it. Right? The vav does not make a v sound in this case. It acts as a vowel. So this is the one Hebrew consonant that defies the rules of Hebrew consonants. Right? It morphs into a vowel when you see it on its own, or when you see it with a dot over it. All right. Questions about cholam?
Yeah. So in both, you can see it in both cases. It would be like a dot and then a dot and a vav. Just depends.
So there are two different ways you can write it. So number one, and I haven't done this with the last couple of vowels, so I'll go back and do this in a bit. But what letter is this that I just typed?
A bet.
So if I type a bet with the dot over here, I'm going to make it bigger. Right. If I type a bet with that dot over it, that makes the sound bow, right? Because bet starts with the b sound.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like bow. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The same exact sound happens when you have the full cholam with the vav.
Okay.
This would also sound like bow.
But it'll always be a vav.
Not always, no.
Okay.
So, are you saying might there be another letter in place of the vav?
Correct, yes.
If there is another letter in place of the vav, then that would mean that it's this version, right? That it's just the version with the dot. So let's say, for example,
I got you.
Trying to think of an example. Oh, here we go. I don't know if I'm spelling this right, but
We won't correct you, I promise.
okay. So we've got a taf,
Mm-hmm.
the cholam, and the fe, or the fe sofit, right? That's going to be tof, which is a drum. Tof is a drum. It sounds exactly the same if you just have that dot there.
Okay.
So when you see the dot above between that first and second letter, all that means is that it still makes that O sound, but it still comes after the first letter.
Okay.
Leads into the second. So tof. This isn't actually a word, but let's say, right, that would be mom.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as mom.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great. I'm going to go back a slide, though, because I forgot. Very important. Back to this. Now that we know how these letters and vowels work together, let's see. I think I just gave it away, but that's okay. Brigham, can you read this letter that I just typed? Or this consonant not consonant, this syllable I just typed.
Is it like ghee as in key?
Yeah, ghee. Great.
Okay.
Or as in like the enriched butter. All right. How about Curtis? What's this letter?
That is a Sadi.
It's not a tsadi, but a lot of people get that mixed up.
That would be what's the other one? Zion.
Zion, nice.
Zion,
Okay,
yeah.
so how would you read that syllable?
Zay.
Right. And then, just because you asked about it before, Brigham, how would you say this syllable?
Well, I don't. I genuinely don't know.
It's one of the letters you asked about before.
Yeah. It's not. It's not Faye.
It's not Faye. It's not one of the final letters.
It's one of the K's.
It is not one of the K's.
Then honestly, I don't know. I've done already forgot.
It has the same sound as samech.
It's not one, well, if it's not one of the K's.
All right, Curtis, do you know what this letter?
I'm really sorry. I feel defeated.
That's a sin, and
Great.
that would be se.
Great. Right. So that one is a sin, and it's tricky. Sin is tricky for two reasons. One, because samech also makes that sound, and then two, it looks very similar to a shin. The dot's just in a different place. So it makes that se sound. And I love how both of you are getting this concept so quickly of the consonant sound followed by the vowel sound. All right. Our next vowel sound that we're gonna learn is the shuruk. And the shuruk makes that ooh sound, like rude or room or pool. So what are some other English words that have that ooh sound in them?
Dude.
What did you say?
Dude. I don't know if that's just the way I pronounce it or not.
Dude. Absolutely. I thought you said Jew, but Jew also has the shuruk. Yes, dude, Jew, mood,
Food.
exactly, right? Those all make that ooh sound, and that's going to have your same vav situation. And this doesn't have, this has a different second version than the cholam did, but you're not going to see it without you're not going to see this one dot in the middle without the vav. So that's ooh. And either of you can answer this. Any idea what sound that would make, that letter combination?
Ooh.
Ooh, right. Because the ayin also
Silent.
silent. Exactly. All right. The kubutz also has that ooh sound. The way that I've learned to tell the kubutz and the shuruk apart is that this kubutz is kind of like the smokestack that's coming out of the caboose, even though, so reminds you kind of a train, sort of. It's a little bit long-winded, but this one is the kubutz. This also has 3 dots, but they're 3 dots that are in a diagonal line. So this also has that same ooh as in rude or room or pool. All right. So just as some review, the shuruk and the kubutz both have that oo sound. And both of
Now,
these
will the shuruk always be paired with the yud right there?
with the vav there, yes.
Vav, I'm sorry. Yes. So
Don't be
it'll always be paired together?
They will, which I will say admittedly sometimes gets confusing because you've got some letters, some consonants that always have a dot in the middle, right? Um,
Hmm.
when a consonant has a dot in the middle, if it's not a vav, it doesn't mean that it has an oo sound. So the vav is really the only thing that's going to indicate. If you've got a vav with a dot in the middle, that's the only thing that's going to indicate that oo sound. Right. So the shuruk here, this would just sound like ooh. I sometimes have bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah students pronounce it vu. You don't pronounce the vav, so it's just ooh. You pretend it's
Yeah.
not a vav. All right. And cholam and shuruk, it may take a while to be able to remember the difference, but the shuruk is in the middle of the vav, so the dot's in the middle of the vav. So I don't know what my Hebrew teachers were thinking, but I always learned it uh, if a ball hits you in the stomach, your reaction is to say ooh, right? Um, and then cholam, the O, remember, is that dot over.
Okay.
That's the difference between the cholam and the shuruk. Questions about the O's and the oohs before we go forward?
Nope.
Nice.
Well,
All right. This is the most annoying, but one of the most prevalent vowels that we have. This is a vowel called the shva. We'll learn more about the shva next week. Or really probably in 2 weeks, we'll learn more about the rules of the shva. But today, what you get to know is that number one, it marks the end of a syllable. Whenever you see a shva, you know, oh, that syllable's over, right? The shva either is completely silent or it makes a small sound like an right? So either completely silent or makes an It can appear next to other vowels, which we'll see in a minute. Um, and in 2/3 of the cases where it appears next to another vowel, it does not change that vowel sound. So again, the shva, it has 2 dots, but this time the 2 dots are vertical instead of horizontal. So this also has 2 dots underneath. We'll now see a little bit of how the shva is used elsewhere. So we'll call it the chataf segol has the sound, and the chataf patach has the sound. So if you circle here, you see that there's a shva here and there's a shva here. These two letters sound exactly the same, or these two syllables sound exactly the same as if there had been no shva there at all. Okay.
you know,
So,
as somebody that has messy handwriting,
mhm.
when you're writing fast, does it get difficult having to put that many dots under a letter?
Yes, and in Israel, people usually will often not write vowels. So if you were to go and visit a restaurant in Israel, there would be no vowels on the menu.
Okay.
It's kind of it's there to help us, it's there to help us learn the Hebrew, and then after a while, once we've gotten used to how all the words sound, once you become fluent in Hebrew,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to read without the vowels.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but in a prayer book, you're always going to see the vowels. So yes, I do agree. It's annoying to write all the
Well, I can
vowels.
understand, if you're trying to write fast and have to put 6 dots under a letter, I mean, that just on top of them all jumbling together and looking like a blob, I don't know.
Yeah.
Apologize.
What I'll often do is when I'm writing, like let's say I was writing this, is I would write it as if it's kind of two different vowels, right? You draw the Shiva first, and then you draw the Sigol.
Okay.
That it looks like you've got two different vowels there. So it sounds exactly the same as a patach, sounds exactly the same as a Sigol, and this is a similar to what you were asking before, Brigham, about why in the world would we have these if we could just write a Sigol or a patach.
Right.
Just has to do with open syllables, closed syllables.
Extra step for no reason, basically.
Well, not so much for no reason, but it kind of goes back to the history of the word and how that word is formed, and what in Hebrew, what makes Hebrew a lot easier than English after you've learned all the rules, is that word forms are always consistent. So like when you're learning verbs in Hebrew, the vowel patterns in each of the words are going to be exactly the same. And so sometimes if a letter doesn't take a particular vowel, or it doesn't really make sense with that particular vowel that it needs in that verb form, you add a sigol, or you add a shiva to it, or a patach becomes a kamatz, or vice versa. So it's a lot, but it kind of makes more sense once we start learning Hebrew grammar, which is why it's kind of difficult to start out with just learning how to read and write Hebrew when you're not used to the language, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain. All right. Variations on kamatz. Remember how we said that kamatz has one variation. Most of the time, I'm going to say again, most of the time that you see kamatz, most of the time that you see this little T there, you just write it a T. It looks fancy in this font, but really it's just a T. Most of the time when you see that, what sound are we going to assume it makes? Ah, exactly. But there is one case in which when we see it, actually a couple cases, in which when we see a kamatz, it's going to make an O sound. Right? So when we see a kamatz with a shva next to it, a chataf kamatz, that's always going to make that O sound. Same O as cholam. All right. I say flashcard break, but we'll come back to flashcards in a little bit. The second variation is the kamatz katan, or the little kamatz. Again, even though I've said this 5 times already, you should always assume that the kamatz sounds like an when you see it on its own, unless you've done extensive research on Hebrew grammar, which I haven't, or unless you have a book with a particular font in it, which we'll see in a second. While the sound, kamatz, is technically called a kamatz gadol, we're just going to call the sound kamatz throughout this class. Makes it easier. That's what it is 90% of the time. We've already learned that kamatz sound that sounds like an O with the shva next to it. Sometimes it sounds like an O even without a shva next to it. That's called a kamatz katan, a little kamatz. And again, that has to do with short and long vowels, open and closed syllables, and kind of the vowel patterns that you need in verbs. Some prayer books are gracious enough to make the kamatz katan, which is the O sound, look different than a plain old kamatz, the sound. So if you're eagle-eyed, you may be able to notice the differences in some sidurim, and a siddur is a prayer book. So when you're looking at a prayer book, you might be able to tell the difference. Right? So in this prayer book, in this particular prayer book, this is Siddur Lev Shalem. This is the prayer book that we use on the high holidays. Actually, we use Machzor. Machzor is a high holiday prayer book. We use Machzor Lev Shalem on the high holidays, but this is going to be the font that we'll see on the high holidays. So I've highlighted it in 2 different colors. I know they're kind of light, so it might be difficult to see, but either Curtis or Brigham Can you tell the difference between, and I'll circle some of the kamatzes. Can you
Well, it
tell?
looks like it's double the size.
Yeah, right. So in some prayer books, your kamatz katan, the one that sounds like an O, is going to be bigger than your regular kamatz. And you'll notice that the regular old kamatz, the one that sounds like ah, shows up a lot more than your kamatz katan, right? Than your O kamatz, right? And you'll also notice that the words are kind of that most of the time when we see the kamatz katan, it shows up in very similar words, right? So this word here is going to be kol. This word here is going to be lechol. This word here is bechol. This one is uvchol. And chol or kol means every or all. Right? So they're really all the same word. There are other words where the kamatz katan shows up, but a lot of the time it's just that one example.
I do have a question that is a little bit not necessarily pertaining to this, but pertaining to Hebrew as a whole. Is there like I see there's a period at the end of the very, very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other like punctuation, like a comma, like a any other thing that English would have? Because I'm not necessarily noticing anything, but I don't know what I'm looking at also.
Yeah, totally depends on the text that you're looking at.
Okay.
So in a lot of Siddurim, you will see a comma, you will see a period in a lot of prayer books. In some if you're reading a novel in Hebrew or something, you'll probably see a period as well. And sorry. But in some prayer, like in the Torah, there's going to be 0 dots at all. But in a modern book, you're usually going to have a period or some other kind of punctuation. In other books, you're going to see the end of a sentence is kind of going to look like a colon, like this. This is Juno. She has no boundaries. So it'll look like a colon in some texts. That's how you can tell the end of a sentence.
I just wasn't sure. I was looking around trying to find some kind of punctuation, and
Yeah.
other than that period down there, did not see anything.
Right. But here, like for example, in Siddur Sim Shalom, you're going to see a comma in there. I didn't even know the next example has that comma in it. You'll also notice I talked about little extra marks that happen, and these here next to the kamatz, that's called a meteg, and it's basically an accent mark. It's telling you where the emphasis is in that word. This word, for example, is kuma, and the emphasis is under the mem to let you know that the vowel is that it sounds like that the emphasis is under ma instead of ku, right? So kuma, right? Or this last word on the first line is haaretz. So with this one, what is the difference between the kamatz, the regular kamatz, and the kamatz katan?
This one's got a dot instead of a line.
Exactly, right. And this is the Siddur we use most of the time. This is the Siddur we use on Shabbat. So if you ever come on Shabbat, or if you follow along with our Shabbat services online, then you'll see, anytime you see that, it looks like a patach with a dot underneath, but makes an O sound. Anytime you see that, you know that that's a kamatz katan. It makes that O sound.
Okay.
All right, so here's another example. This is Mishkan Tefillah. This is the Reform Siddur. I don't know if this is the one that that they use in Monroe, or if they use Gates of Prayer still, or if they use a different Siddur in Monroe.
I believe that's the one that they use.
This one, the Mishkan Tefillah?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So this one's really hard to see, I think. Maybe it's easier for some. Can you tell the difference between a kamatz katan and a regular kamatz in this text?
It's kind of similar. One's just a little bit bigger, maybe?
Yeah.
Just ever so slightly bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit bigger.
Right, so this word's going to be bechol, And this word's going to be tamid, right? So this one, the one on the right makes the O sound, and the one on the left makes the ah sound.
Mhm.
Right? But even with all of that, I've had to search through Cedarim to find pages with lots of examples of both O and ah sounds. So most of the time, unless you've got the word kol or chol, most of the time that ah sound, or that kamatz is going to make an ah sound. Um, Other questions about the kamatz, the elusive kamatz?
I can tell you that I don't have good enough eyesight to be just reading it and to be able to tell this difference.
You and me both. Yeah.
I would have to really know the word to know that that's different.
Well, if you come to services at Agudat Achim, you won't be using this siddur.
Okay.
It is a lovely siddur, though. Other than that, here's a bonus: is diphthongs, right? So if you've got the ah sound with the yud afterwards, like a patach, and then a yud after that, it's gonna sound like I, like tai or my tai. Just what naturally happens when you have an ah sound with a y sound afterwards, I. Similarly, with if you've got the o sound with the yud afterwards, you put o and y together and it goes oi, like toy or coil or oy vey.
Okay.
And that's about all of our vowel sounds. I've got a couple other things for us to do here. So we can try a couple of these exercises and see can we apply these can we apply what we know about the letters to what we know about the vowels, and try reading some of the words from those first 6 verses of Genesis, the verses that we're going to be learning in the Torah. And so I found 8 words from those first 6 verses that we'll be able to read with what we know so far. So Curtis, can you try reading that first word? And if you need help, you are welcome to phone a friend.
Well, I'm definitely going to phone a friend. Is that bara?
Exactly, right? Because you've got bet. Oops, you've got bet with the kamatz underneath, right? So that's a ba sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got a resh with the kamatz underneath. So that's the and ah sound. So ba ra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the aleph at the end, which makes what sound?
Silent.
Silent. Right, exactly. So ba ra, nice.
Why would you have, obviously it's silent. Does it change the way the word operates, having it there?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Hebrew, one of the interesting things about Hebrew, is that it's built on a root system. So, for example, this word is bara, which means he created,
Okay.
or someone who is not necessarily male but is grammatically male created, right? There are other when you want to conjugate this verb, like I said before, that it's actually the patterns are pretty consistent. So if you want to say who creates, he creates, it would be bo re, right? And that uses it. You'll see those three letters, right? Bet, resh, aleph. So most words have that 3 root letter pattern. So that aleph is the last root letter. Part of it too might just be that aleph might have been pronounced differently back in the day, right? So we don't really know how ancient Hebrew was pronounced back when it was written. We can approximate it, but maybe it was pronounced a little bit differently. We know that an ayin in some versions of Hebrew today, in some dialects of Hebrew today, the ayin does make a sound. It makes kind of a guttural sound, like an
What do you have an example? Like what dialect would that be? Would that
So
be
that would be, I know
Sephardi,
Yemenites.
Yemenite?
Yeah, I know Yemenites will do that. And then similarly, the taf. Uh, you often will often see a taf, this letter with a dot in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And in Ashkenazi Judaism, or in Ashkenazi Hebrew, the taf and the taf with the dot and the taf without the dot make two different sounds. So one of them is a t sound and one of them is a s sound.
Okay, interesting.
So a lot of it has to do with that dialect. All right. So now let's try Brigham. Let's try number 2.
Okay, so I was just kind of looking at it, and it doesn't sound. I mean, obviously, is the first one bow?
It's not bow, but
Ba.
you've got the right vowel. Do you know what letter this is here?
That's a whole lam, right? Long O. Okay, so boo.
No,
Right?
you've got the cholam right, the O sound, but what's the consonant?
I'm gonna be honest. That's one of the ones I don't have.
That is okay. So Curtis, do you know the name of that consonant?
It's a tough.
The taf. So now that we know
Oh, T.
taf,
Okay.
yep, the t sound. So now try
Okay,
it.
so now it's 2.
Not 2, because remember the dot is over.
Toe. Is that right? Toe?
Toe, right?
Okay. And then the next one, I believe I had it sounded out. It was that's hey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with the it's not yud, is it? At the we've said it 7 times so far. Yiv. What's
So it looks like a vav, but remember it's that vowel that looks like a vav but isn't a vav.
which is shuruk, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so we've got who?
Who? Right.
Isn't that right? Okay, okay.
Put together those 2 syllables, see if you can do it.
Tohu?
Tohu. Right. And it's
Is that right?
because it's supposed to be silly. It's a word for chaos.
Okay.
Tohu. Great. All right. Now we've got a 3-syllable word here. Curtis, try it out.
Would that be Vavohu?
Yeah, vavohu. Right. Tohu vavohu is like chaos and disarray. Right. The world started out as tohu vavohu, a bunch of disorganized stuff. Fantastic. Vavohu. All right. Brigham, let's try number 4. And I think these were both letters that were in the first week.
Okay. So that's a yud
Mm-hmm.
with the shva, right? Okay, so what would that change anything?
Great. So the yud with the shva either makes no sound or makes a little bit of a sound. In this case, it's going to make kind of an sound. So how would you put those 2 together?
Yud or yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then we've got the hirik,
Mhm.
long e. So that's hey, he.
Yeah.
So yuhi, yeah,
Yihi.
yuhi, right?
Right, except that shva sound, it's really the function of this shva sound is just to make the letter sound like something, right? We make the sound under the shva when we can't get from one letter to another. So saying you can't really say he, right? Because then you can't hear the yud, right? So
Yeah.
you just make the smallest sound you can. So it'll be like
Yi.
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. The shva is a tricky one, but it's basically the smallest sound that you can make while still making a sound.
Okay.
And sometimes when you can pronounce the letter without making a little sound, then it will be silent. And we'll learn the rules for that in 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Curtis, try number 5.
Would that be Kara?
Yeah, kara. It was called. Right. So remember, if we've read the Genesis story, right? God calls things different names, right? God calls the night and the day and all of those different things
Right.
called. And number 6, Brigham, we've got one of those diphthongs.
Is it the? It's not ya ya. That or not la ya ya. La la, because I know it's lamed, right?
Right, but you're
Okay.
super close. So how would you put you know that this is a yud because you said the yud before. So how would the vowel sound if you had the ah sound with the yud afterwards?
Lai. So Lila.
Yeah, exactly. Lila. You've got a hey at the end because and you don't pronounce the hey at the end after an ah sound because it's similar to the yud. It doesn't really make much of a sound if you try it, right?
Okay.
Lila. You could
Yeah,
say that.
Lila. Okay.
So so it sounds like Lila, which is the night. And also, what I'll say to you, Brigham, also is that these words become a lot easier when you listen to Hebrew prayers or when you sing along to Hebrew prayers. It kind of
Okay.
gets in your mouth a little bit. So right now it kind of sounds like nonsense. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it does.
I don't know. I'm not in your brain, but it might sound like nonsense.
And I don't mean that. That's why I haven't said it. I don't mean that like offensively in any way. But
No.
it does. I mean, like what coho or kuhu or whatever it was that just kind of
Yeah,
doesn't sound like a
tofu.
word. It doesn't sound
Right,
like a word.
exactly. So once you start listening to services and come to services, then it becomes a little bit. Once you start hearing the Hebrew and the rhythm of the Hebrew, um, it becomes a little bit more intuitive. I can't say it's completely intuitive, but it becomes a little bit more.
It
So
does help just a tad. I got you. Okay.
yeah. Um, Although I know that it's certainly not easy to come to services when you have an almost 2-year-old.
Or two
It's not
hours
easy to
away.
do anything. Yeah. Yeah.
or you live far away.
Yeah.
All right. Curtis, let's try number 7.
Try is the right word in this situation.
Yeah.
Rachia.
You're almost there. What's that letter right here? What's this letter called?
Kuf.
Great. What sound does the kuf make?
Ha.
It's called a kuf.
Oh. K.
Exactly. So now try to say the word.
Rakia.
Yeah, rakia.
Okay.
Rakia is that line that separates waters from waters.
Okay.
The above waters from the below waters. All right.
Right, and it has a patah over the last letter,
Mm-hmm.
the I, which would be silent, so it would have the ah sound. Correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And Brigham, this is similar to one that you said before.
Is this what like Vihi?
Yeah, vihi.
Okay. Okay, so not Vihi, it's Vihi.
Well, this one would be vihi because it has that chirik underneath.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you're right with that. And you'll notice too that I didn't put it in the breakdown, but that this has a shva here. Reason why I didn't put it in the breakdown is this is one of those cases of shva that you don't really need to say it.
Okay.
Because you can move from that yud is the end of the syllable. So vihi
Okay.
will end when it's the end of a syllable, when it closes off a syllable, then you don't actually have to pronounce the shva. But again, There are easier ways to learn that, and we'll learn all of that in a couple weeks. Okay. Questions about this reading?
No, but I know I'm gonna have to watch this video like 3 or 4 times. To make sure I
Great.
It's the
got it.
exact same here.
Wonderful. Happy to hear that. All right. Last little exercise here is to name a single syllable. English, Spanish, Hebrew, because I didn't know who we were gonna have online today. Name a single syllable word, let's say in English today, that ends with a vowel sound.
Snatch.
That ends with a vowel sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. Through.
Below.
Oh, I love that. Okay. But below is 2 syllables.
Well,
So
yeah,
through. Oh, but through has a TH sound.
Oh yeah, no th. Okay. Blue.
Blue. Great.
just about to say blue.
Blue. All right. How about so Pamela, we're saying we're trying to think of English words that end with a vowel sound that don't have a ch or j or th sound.
Okay.
I'm actually going to make it even easier. I'm going to shorten blue to loo, like the English word for bathroom. It's going to be a lot easier. And then also I'll write boo also. So we'll split blue into 2.
Go.
Go, nice. And then Pamela, do you have one?
Duh.
Duh.
Like D-U-H.
I don't think that we have that sound in Hebrew.
Oh, saw.
Saw, love that. Saw. Okay, so let's try these 4. I'm gonna do our first example. So Lou, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try to draw these words, try to write these words using Hebrew letters. And so I'll use Lou as our first example here. So Lou, I would start with the lamed because it makes the l sound. There are 2 different ways I can write Lou, right? Not like that. That's not one of the ways. So this, you could draw it like this, Lou, with the shuruk, or you could draw it with the kubutz.
Okay.
So those are the 2 ways that you could draw Lou.
Oh yeah. Okay.
How about boo? So try writing boo. And once you have it, let me know.
I have something here.
I think I've got something too. I don't know if it's it, but
Great.
You can
All right,
see this here.
That was awesome. That's awesome, Curtis.
I actually did it different.
Fantastic. Those are 2 different ways that we can write boo. Fantastic. Right, so we have boo and boo. Great. And then how about go? Try writing. There are also 2 ways that we could write go.
Write a gimel, the vav, and the dot over it.
All right. What's the vav with the dot over it called?
Kalam.
Olam. All right. So go. Does anyone have another way to write go? Same vowel, different form?
Would it be Gimel and a Kibbutz?
So the kubutz, remember the kubutz has the oo sound. Still a cholam, but it looks different.
If it's the column that looks different, it's the one.
Oh, to just add it to the gimel?
Yeah, with the dot. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, go.
Okay.
All right, and there are 4 different ways to write saw.
Sin
Mm-hmm.
with Kamatz Katan.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a kamatz katan. It would just be a regular kamatz.
Kamatz. Okay.
Saw.
And sin with the patah.
Yeah.
Nice. What's another Hebrew consonant that we can use?
Samik.
Great. Nice.
Now, okay, I didn't get here in the beginning, but if we use a patak, is that an ah sound?
Yes. So like saw. So the patach and the kamatz gadol have the same sound. Oh, actually, that's good for go too, because for go we could theoretically use the kamatz, the kamatz katan for go.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but yes, saw. There are 4 ways. There are actually more than 4 ways, right? Because we saw in some of our examples that you can add an aleph or you can add a hey after an ah sound, either patach or kamatz. And although you would normally see a hey after a kamatz. But you can add a hey or an aleph and it wouldn't change the sound if it's at the end of the word. Great. Right. So in our class syllabus, we have a whole lot of examples of these kind of one syllable words that you can practice writing on your own. It's so important to not just practice reading Hebrew, but to practice writing Hebrew as well. Um, at least, especially for those who are kind of like me, who are kinesthetic learners, right? Who learn by writing. So great ways to practice this week are going to be those flashcards that are on Quizlet, and if you have trouble accessing it, please let me know. So Quizlet is a great way to practice, and then a couple of those exercises that I have in that packet, like the figuring out those one syllable English words that end with this vowel. I have a bunch of those on there, like C or ku, things like that, right? Those are the kinds of things that you get to practice writing out in Hebrew. And if you have questions, I know that I'm meeting with Brigham soon. I know that I'm meeting with Curtis soon. I know that I'm meeting with all 3 of you in the next few days. So if you have questions about any of this, please let me know. Any final questions before I let you go?
How many of those lessons are for this class?
How many of which lessons?
The lessons on Quizlet.
Oh, on Quizlet, I sent you the link to the ones that are applicable to this class. So you're gonna see there's one with just final letters. There's one with just vowels. There's also there's one that says aleph bet in Hebrew. That's the one with the with the Hebrew letters. That's gonna have. In fact, I'll show you right now.
I think it says today on it, doesn't it? I think what you sent in the email, I think it literally says today.
Probably. And today I just updated this one today. So I'll show you the study set that we have. So what I sent you is gonna bring you here, I believe. And set 1 has just that first half of the Hebrew alphabet that we learned the first week. Set 2 is gonna have the whole Hebrew alphabet without the Sofit letters. If you just want a refresher on those final letters, on those Sofit letters, you can click here. If you want all of the letters and the Sofit, including Sofit, that's set 3. Just vowels, Hebrew vowels. And then if you want to review everything that we've learned so far, this says in Hebrew aleph bet, and I copied this from from a set from Rabbi Feivel, but I made my own edits. So I added a couple of things and changed the format of a couple of things. So so this is if you want to really review everything. The way that I would practice is to start out with set 1. Once you feel really confident about set 1, move to set 2, then set 3, and then finally, once you feel confident about all of that, to practice everything together. The great thing about Quizlet 2 is that it doesn't just have flashcards. It'll do it in a test format. It'll do it kind of in a tiered learning format, a matching format. And then if you have friends to play with, then you can do either Checkpoint or Classic Live, which is always fun.
The reason I asked that is because if you click on Rabbi Sydney, it gives you all of your classes that you've ever done.
Interesting.
So that's why I asked, because it gives classes from 2020 that are other classes.
Right. And this class originally was started 2020, so it might say that this was a set from 2020 as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for learning with me. And I'm glad we got to see you for a couple minutes at the very
I'm
end.
so sorry to be late. I
Got another
wish
class.
I signed up for both classes at the same time. I just didn't know how long that other class was going to last.
All good. So I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Actually, I'll see most of you or all of you in the next 2 days.
Yeah.
See you in a couple days. And have a great evening.